All right, time for the main event. You guys can sit back down, that would be fantastic. So I'm pleased to introduce Joe Meyer. He's an experienced startup CEO and operator of several high-growth tech companies, including HopStop, which was acquired by Apple, Quigo, which was acquired by AOL, and eBay, with a proven track record of launching new businesses, growing traffic, raising venture capital, recruiting teams, scaling revenue, and mergers and acquisitions. Joe was named Entrepreneur of the Year in 2012 by Crain's New York Business and was number 9 on Business Insider's 2013 Silicon Valley 100 of the top 100 executives in the New York tech industry, and New Jersey tech industry, presumably. He lives in Westchester County with his incredibly patient wife and their 4 children, who he hopes will follow their dreams and pursue their passions regardless of what anyone else might think, hopefully just like all of you. Please help me in welcoming Joe Meyer to the stage.
I'm going to walk around a little bit. I don't like standing behind a podium. Can everyone hear me? Am I speaking loudly enough? Yes? Okay, cool. So I'm going to keep this kind of light. It's going to hopefully be more interactive and more of a light presentation than anything formal. What I'd like to talk about is just kind of my last 10 years of running startups and working as an executive at startups. And basically the title of the presentation is the ups and downs of a startup and taking it through the finish line. And I put taking it through the finish line in brackets because taking a startup through the finish line successfully, which means you've earned, you and your team and your investors, a healthy return on investment, is very rare, and it's definitely an outlier. So I'm going to focus more on the trials and tribulations of running a startup, whether it's successful or not. Speaking of, how many people in this room have started a company? It doesn't need to be in the tech space. Started a company, are starting a company, or worked for a startup? All right, around 95%. Of those who have started a company, are starting a company, or have worked for a startup, how many of those ventures, how many people have worked for a successful venture that has either gone IPO or had a successful acquisition that returned a healthy return to investors? All right, maybe around less than 5%. And I think that's the norm. So really the main point of my presentation is going to be more about enjoying the ride instead of going into it with the expectations that it's going to be successful. If it's successful, great. You have to enjoy the journey. Top or bottom? So I grew up in a very traditional family in Staten Island, and I'm the youngest of 4 brothers, and my parents really kind of espoused the point of getting a good education, a good education leading to a good job being a traditional good job. And for me, that never really resonated. I had a dad who was an executive at a bank, commercial banking. He went through his banks, went through several restructurings. He found himself unemployed at various points in his career. And seeing that as a young kid, I said to myself, you know what, I don't really want to go down that traditional employment path, and I'm going to pursue interests from a professional perspective that provide fulfillment. And I truly can look back on my experiences, and I've had just as many failures as successes in my career, but I have no regrets. And I think that's incredibly important, to live your life with as few regrets as possible. And if you're going to be doing something for 10 hours a day, hopefully you're going to enjoy it, and not do it because it makes a lot of money or because it's perceived to be a successful career. I think this quote kind of summarizes that thought. So another quote that I've really, this is basically a presentation of quotes, which I wanted to, a lot of them are kind of catchphrases, but I think they're very true. I picked out some quotes that really are true in reality. So true success is going from failure to failure and never losing enthusiasm along the way. My first 2 to 3, depending on how you count, startup ventures were unsuccessful. Most people, if you have one failed startup experience, you're probably going to quit and go get a real job, right? 2, you're definitely going to do it. You need persistence. You need to be patient, persistent, tenacious to succeed in the startup community. And when you have success after experiencing some failures, that success feels so much better because you've learned some lessons along the way. So I heard a quote several years ago. I forget who said it. It said, entrepreneurship is not a career path. And it is absolutely true. I don't have the type of resume that says Goldman Sachs, Procter & Gamble, General Electric, McKinsey, etc. If you look at my resume, I don't even know if I have a resume anymore. If you look at my resume or my LinkedIn profile, you'll see failures and successes. You'll see 2 years here, 4 years here, 3 years here. But I've enjoyed it all, right? It's what I chose, it's what I follow my passions, and I don't really care what it says on my resume. What I care about is what I do every day, and enjoying what I do every day. So, as you can see, I've had a couple of failures. I started a company that was really kind of the early version of Uber when I was in my mid-20s. It was before its time. And I learned some really great lessons from it. What I really learned is I never want to start a failed.com company ever again. It's not fun to fail. But I did learn some valuable lessons from it. I'm glad I did it when I was in my 20s instead of my 40s. You get labeled a lot out there. You get labeled as either a failure, as a success, but people put labels on it. And when I started my first company, which wound up raising venture capital, hiring a bunch of employees, starting to productize, and then we hit a downturn and never got far enough along, and I had to fire everyone that I hired and close the company down. I got immediately labeled as a quote-unquote failed.com entrepreneur during the first .com downturn. That was tough to hear because I spent 2 years of my life not writing an idea on a napkin like everyone thought, and instead, doing some really good things, learning some key lessons. But it didn't matter. Perception was I was a failed.com entrepreneur who wrote an idea on a napkin and raised venture capital with 5 minutes. So I needed to figure out a way to kind of resurrect myself. And I can't tell you, I was probably unemployed for a good year. Post-MBA at Morton, undergrad at Georgetown. Good big company experience from early in my career, but at one failed.com experience as a founder, I got labeled. I went through a year interviewing with people for regular jobs. No one would give me a chance because I was one of these failed.com entrepreneurs. I found an executive at eBay who looked at my resume and said, I love the fact that you went out there and took a chance, pursued your dream, learned things along the way. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what you would do differently this next time. Oh, by the way, we have a company here in year number 2 or 3 of its existence that's growing at like 5,000% year over year. We're going to continue growing at 5,000% year over year. We need guys just like you to come in for the next 3 years, take on 5 different roles in the next 3 years and help us manage this growth. Do you want to join? I said, sure. Where do I sign up? From that point onward, it's been some success along the way because coming off the eBay experience, I now changed the perception in people's minds that I was a success, that I had something to do with eBay's success. I mean, really. I was one of several hundred at first, several thousand people on eBay. Was I really critical to eBay's success? No. But I was attached myself to a successful venture. From that point forward, it was easier to find people willing to take a chance on me. So I've had a couple of successes since then. but I'm probably batting around 400 or 500, which is a pretty good batting average in the startup community. But my first 2 or 3 ventures were unsuccessful. If you can make it through and you can persist, you will find success. If you're tenacious, if you have drive, energy, passion, you don't listen to the naysayers, you will find success in the startup community. You just have to break through. Most recently, I'm the CEO of a company called HopStop, the largest provider of transit routing service in the world behind Google Maps. We were acquired by Apple 9 months ago. I'm currently with Apple today. What's next? I'm with Apple today, but I'll probably go start a company. Just in my blood. It's a disease. Can't shake it. What use do I have? So, famous quote by Vince Lombardi: "Winners never quit, quitters never win." If I had quit after my first 2 or 3 failed experiences, I would have never tasted the smell of success. And it felt much better succeeding after having failed a couple times. And I think there's this misconception in the tech industry, because everyone reads the tech crunches of the world and reads about another startup getting funded to the tune of $10 to $100 million, another company getting acquired for $100 million to $1 billion to $19 billion, and everyone thinks that that's the norm. Those are the outliers. But if you get caught up in what you read about all of these successes, you're always going to second guess yourself and second guess what you're working on. I spent maybe 10 years in Silicon Valley, thought I would never move, loved it, definitely an area of innovation. And I moved to New York for a startup, and I found myself not being distracted anymore. I was able to focus, heads down, on what that startup was trying to achieve. I didn't have a dizzying array of venture capitalists around me, dizzying array of angel investors around me, dizzying array of startups being started all the time. I could just focus. And what I realized is that success in startups is all about execution. You have to be able to execute near flawlessly to succeed. And if you read all the articles and you get caught up in all the hype, that's going to distract you from what you're trying to accomplish. And what you're trying to accomplish is what you're setting out to do, and nobody should dissuade you or make you second guess what you're trying to accomplish. So, I think one of the worst things that you could possibly do in your career is give up on your dreams. And I love the fact that there were 3 entrepreneurs here tonight, of all ages and of all different backgrounds, and that's awesome. I love seeing people start companies. I had coffee with an entrepreneur who started a company just 2 hours ago in New York City. I see 3 entrepreneurs presenting tonight. I love that. It's great. These are people that are dreamers, and they see a need in the market, and they're following their dreams, and they're trying to fill a need in the market. What's the saying? Innovation is a byproduct of necessity. There's a need for your service, the recruiting service. There's a need for your pet adoption service. Still trying to figure out what your market niche is, but yours is the most technical, but I'm sure there's a need for it. No doubt there's a need for it. So again, innovation is a byproduct of necessity. People often ask me, what was HopStop's critical success factor? What I say is, people needed to get from point A to point B without driving their car in big cities, right? There was nothing out there like it 8 years ago when the company was started. So the founder of HopStop, of which I wasn't the founder, I was co-founder, said, you know what? I'm going to go build it. I'm going to go find an engineer on Elance, halfway across the world in Siberia. I'm going to type out the specs for that engineer. An engineer is going to build it for me, and I'm going to introduce it with one mode of transit, i.e. subway, in one city, i.e. in New York. And I'm going to introduce it with no press, no marketing, and if I'm going to put it out there, and if people start using it, then that will be a very good sign that there is absolutely a need for this service. In 9 years of HopStop's existence. And I'll preface this by saying that HopStop was continually a top 5 ranked iOS and Android app in the navigation category of iTunes and Google Play. The company spent 0 on marketing, not 1 penny on marketing. It was all word of mouth. But again, innovation is the byproduct of necessity. It was a highly utilitarian service that people needed. And because it worked, the vast majority of the time, people kept on using it. Because it provided people convenience and utility, the people that used it recommended it to their friends and family. And that's how the company grew. So I won't spend any time on this slide besides saying I've had some other startup success. But greatest success that I've had in my life, beyond selling companies to Apple or AOL or working at eBay, is my family. So I put in my bio that I have an incredibly patient wife. My wife is so friggin' patient, it's unbelievable, because she's put up with a serial entrepreneur who's had multiple failures along the way, and it took a while to get some success. And now I want to go start another company. And she's like, Joe, why don't you kind of stop and smell the roses for a minute? And she's right. But, I've risked things along the way, and I never forgot that, my primary job in life is as a husband and as a father, and to provide for my family. And that never stopped being the case. I've always prioritized that role over all other roles. So this is one of my favorite quotes. Literally, your reputation can be damaged for a career in 5 minutes or less. So when I elevated to the role of a CEO, finally in my career, I realized, wow, I realized it along the way, but it really kind of hit me when I became a CEO that my word has to be absolutely golden. I have to be 100% trustworthy. People have to look at me and say, I believe in him. Whatever comes out of his mouth is the truth. Whether he's right or wrong, he's going to follow through on what he's saying. And he is going to have, he's our leader, and I have to trust him. You make so many unwritten promises as a leader, whether you're a founder, whether you're an executive, whether you're a CEO, you make unwritten promises, and you have to follow through on those promises. And the first time you don't, you'll lose faith of your employees. If you lose faith of your employees, you don't have any ability to execute. I remember being at a closing party for a startup that I was at, that was sold to AOL, and the executive that became the CEO post-acquisition was at that closing dinner, and he was the only one not drinking. Everyone else was drinking, partying it up, kind of, being very, they were enjoying themselves. He was the only one not drinking, and I thought to myself, well, he's kind of bored. Why is he not drinking? Why is he not partying? Now I realize he has a reputation to uphold. He's the CEO of the company, right? He can't put himself in compromising positions. So, your reputation at the end of the day is all that matters. Once you lose your reputation, it's very hard to resurrect it. So I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions of entrepreneurship, that it's a path to riches. You want to make money in this world, the last thing you do is become an entrepreneur, because the odds are stacked very much against you. Instead, you should go into management consulting or corporate finance or investment banking or private equity or hedge funds or venture capital. You don't become an entrepreneur. So if this is the reason why anyone would do it, you should probably change your reasons. The real reality is the following. So this, I don't even know who came up with this paragraph, but it really hits on everything that a startup is about from beginning to end, whether you're successful or not. And I underlined some key words. If you're in a startup, you have to embrace ambiguity. Every day is a different day, and you get hit unexpectedly with things. You're challenged continually. Most of what's happening is completely irrational and beyond your control. The odds of succeeding are dismal, but you need persistence, unwavering belief, and laser beam focus. Can't tell you how many times in my 5 years at HopStop, people questioned what we were doing, second-guessed what we were doing, told us we should do things differently, led me to start second-guessing myself. I kept on coming back to the fact that what we do, people value. More and more people are using us every day. Our usage is going up, our downloads are going up, our engagement is going up. Our revenue wasn't necessarily going up, but the usage of our service was going up. Fortunately, it was difficult to monetize. But you know how hard it is to become number 1 or 2 at anything in this world? And we were number 1 for a while, number 2 in our space. But because we had a tough time making money, it forced us to second guess what we were doing instead of focusing in on the core. But it really is a riveting roller coaster of emotions, being a startup. But it's fun. It's exciting. Can't tell you how many times people ask me, so what's it like working for Apple now, post-acquisition? Don't get me wrong, it's nice to sell a company to Apple, but I don't wake up every day like I'm used to wake up every day, running out of bed to go fight the good fight. It's a little too comfortable. I'm yearning to go fight that good fight again. Now, I'll take a little bit of time and rest up, but it's truly exciting. And what I realized, what I enjoyed most about being in a startup, yes, I was focused on the end outcome. I wanted to make my investors money. I wanted to make myself some money. I wanted to have a startup success I can call my own. But now that I've achieved that, I realize what I really enjoyed is what I did every day. I enjoyed the journey. It was fun. It was exhilarating. Challenging, tiring, exhausting, yes, but mentally rewarding. And I woke up every day exhausted, but racing to the office. And what else can you ask for in a career, right? So, what I would say is, don't live your life with any regrets, at least from a professional perspective, at all, I should say. But if you want to go do something, if you want to go take a chance, if you want to go start a company, if you see a need in the market, go do it. Right? You're only going to have one chance to that, right? And it only gets harder as you get older. So, don't play it safe. Be, whatever ideas are in your mind, scratch that itch. There could be a presentation from an Apple employee with that Steve Jobs quote. So, I think so much in life, people live their lives worrying about what other people are thinking. Too much. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't worry about what everyone else is thinking about what you're doing. Do things for your own reasons. If you do things because you think other people want you to do certain things, or there's the expectations being placed on you, you're going to live your life with regrets. So again, I've had plenty of failures in my experience, some successes, and I have no regrets. I'm not the world's richest man, I'm not the world's poorest man, but you know what? It's been a fun career. So this quote kind of repeats the same thing. So what I've experienced in being an entrepreneur throughout the last 20 years of my career is that there's really two types of people out there who, and how they view you when you say, I'm doing a startup, or I'm the founder of a company, or here's my idea, what do you think? There's those people that are rooting for you, and that prop you up and want to see you succeed. And those are the people you want to be around. Those are the people you want to bring in as employees, bring on as advisors, bring on as investors. And then the other type of people will be the ones that are envious of what you're doing. They won't tell you that they're envious. You can tell. And they wish they had the guts to go do what you're doing. Those are the people you need to not ignore, but not get persuaded by, and not get beaten down by. And you know who they are, based on the way they react. You want to be around wildly enthusiastic people, because building a company is very difficult. You don't want to be around people that get you down. So, on that note, it might be cliche, but whatever you think is possible is possible. I would often have meetings with my engineers about new features, functionality that we wanted to bring to the service, or a new service altogether. And we would outline it for them, and their first reaction would always be, anything is possible. I love that. That is awesome. Anything is possible. It's true. Anything is possible. Put your mind to it. So this quote is a little bit about kind of steering clear of people that really aren't rooting for you. So this quote is on one of the buildings on Apple's headquarters in Cupertino. I actually tried to take a photo of it the other day when I was out there, and the security guards came up and said I can't take a photo. I found it online. I love this quote. The reason I love this quote is because what it means to me is, HopStop, selling it to Apple, it's yesterday's news. I'm already on to my next thing. I don't care that it was a success, right? It's like being a professional athlete. All right, I hit 330 last year. I had 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, right? That was last year. And if this year I got 220 with 10 home runs and 70 RBIs, that's how you're going to be judged, based on this year. So whatever's happened in the past is behind me. I'm already thinking ahead. And that's what this quote means to me. And I think Steve Jobs really lived that, right? He was always pushing for that next innovation. He was always thinking ahead. He was never resting on his laurels. So another very successful entrepreneur, Bill Gates. It's fine to celebrate success. Do you know how long I celebrated my success of selling the company to Apple? In the summer, I bike to and from work a couple days a week from Westchester to New York. It's just mentally refreshing to do it. After we closed the deal on I think it was a Wednesday before 4th of July, I rode home that night, and I was in a park with the water on one side of me and the greenery on the other side. No one else around. I was biking with my hands free, raised my arms like this. It felt so good to finally have that victory. Put my arms down. I was thinking about what was next. That's how much time I gave myself to smell that victory. Now, I probably should give myself a little bit longer, because I took around a month off after the acquisition, went on a road trip with my family in California, rented a car, just drove all over the place, and I remember in the first hour of the road trip, I looked over at my wife and I said, Leslie, I have 3 ideas I want to run by you for new businesses. And she looked at me like, are you freaking crazy? Like, smell the road, take some time to smell the roses. So maybe I was a little too kind of looking ahead, but I guess my point is that don't rest on your laurels. right? Go out and achieve something great again. So this is an interesting quote because Tom Clancy, a very famous author who recently passed away, talked about how hard it is to come out with a bestseller. And I actually see the analogies between writing a bestseller and having a successful startup. He said, you know, it doesn't just happen. It's not like something mystical happens to you and a muse kisses you in the ear. It takes, and you're divinely inspired, it takes boatload of hard work. Writing, continually writing. Putting out books that might not be bestsellers until at one point you do come out with a bestseller. Just constantly practicing your craft. Only 2 or 3 more slides, I promise. So I get approached by entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs all the time about good ideas that they have. Joe, I have an idea. Can I run it by you? I'm like, sure, yeah, tell me about it. They're excited about it. And they say, you know, what do you think? I said, sounds like a great idea. You know, go do it. All right, stop talking about it. Just do it. Get some proof points. You know, don't write the business plan. Don't put PowerPoints together. Put a product out there. Put a service out there. Well, I'm a business guy. I don't have an engineer or a developer on my team yet. I need to go find a co-founder. No, don't go find a co-founder. If you have an idea, figure out a creative way to launch it. Through hook or crook. Band-Aid, Scotch tape, bubble gum, you name it. You put something out there, and if it's half-baked and you're getting traction against it, then it's probably a good idea. But what you're going to do, if you go down the path of writing business plans, putting PowerPoint presentations together, trying to find technical co-founders, you know, spending 6 months putting a service out there or developing a service, you not only lost time, you still don't even know if you have a good idea, all right? So figure out a creative way to introduce your product quickly or your service. If you get some initial traction against it, you probably have something. If you don't, then at least you figured out maybe why you're not getting traction and can kind of tweak it from there before you invest all this time and energy and, you know, trying to find co-founders and investment capital and all that. Figure out if you have something there. So the idea itself is worth very little in my opinion. It's all about the execution. Yes, it has to be a good idea, and yes, it has to meet a need in the marketplace. But from that point onward, it's all execution. So when I managed a pretty big team at HopStop, and I expected excellence from my employees. And I led by example. I was the hardest working person at the company, worked the longest hours, put in the most time, challenged myself and challenged my employees. And when I saw complacency, pockets of complacency, I would try to squash it right away. I would pull those people aside and say, listen, you're going to be here every day, give it your best every single day, or don't be here, right? Expect excellence of yourself, whether you're the founder or not. Give it your best. You're going to do something day in and day out, give it your best. Second to last slide. Okay. The other key to HopStop's success is that we had a very vocal, vibrant user base that would share their opinions with us, good, bad, or indifferent. Usually bad or indifferent, because you're going to take the time to share your thoughts with the service or the operators of the service. You're usually not going to say, great job, keep doing it. You're usually going to tell the service what you're doing wrong or to do better. We got so much feedback, and we opened up those lines of communication with our users as much as we can, as much as we could. Every point in our user flow, we gave users the opportunity to interact with us and send us messages or send us emails or send us tweets or send us text messages. And we replied to every single one of those customer inputs. I personally read every single email that came into the company and every single tweet about the company in my 5 years at the company. I replied to a lot of them myself. as well. And that feedback was invaluable because it guided our product roadmap. And without that feedback, we literally would have been flying blind, right? The best way to figure out if your service is working or not, or if there's something broken, or if there's an area of opportunity, is to throw it out there and let millions of people bang away at it, and then invite feedback from them, and then take action on that feedback. So there was a great blog post on LinkedIn today about the difference between success and happiness. And then there were like 30 of these types of quotes. I just pulled out 2 or 3 that kind of resonated with me. Key thing is that, you know what, success feels good. Yeah, it's nice to have your company written about, or yourself written about, or you see yourself in print or what have you, or a video of yourself or what have you. None of that makes any difference if you're not enjoying it along the way. If you're not enjoying every single day what you're doing, it doesn't matter if it's a success. Because even if you're successful in terms of making a lot of money or being perceived as a success, if you're not enjoying yourself along the way, you're not going to be happy. I think I already touched on this. And then the last quote I came up with, because I can't find a source for this quote anywhere, and it remains anonymous, so I'm just going to claim it, is luck is the residue of hard work. It's been a quote that's been literally tattooed on my board for probably 20 years now. It's kind of how I live my life and how I live my career, which is you work hard, put in the hours, put in the time, you remain tenacious, you remain persistent, you remain passionate. Some good things will happen if you do that, but it is hard work. Success doesn't come easily. In spite of what you read in TechCrunch, in spite of what you hear on the news, the $19 billion acquisitions of Snapchat don't just happen. And that's like a lottery. It's a lot of hard work, but it's fun. It's rewarding, mentally rewarding, not financially rewarding. If it's financially rewarding, it's great. It's gravy on top, icing on the cake. But it's the journey you have to enjoy. So that's what I would advise. Just give it your all, have fun along the way. Don't do it because you think it's going to lead to a successful outcome. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it. Don't think success is raising a lot of venture capital, because it's not. Don't think success is selling a company or taking the company up to an IPO. True success is having fulfillment and enjoyment during the journey. Thank you. Any questions? I'll only preface the questions, though, by saying that I can't answer or address any question about my current employer at all. So if you ask me anything about Apple, I'm going to take the fifth. Any questions?
How do you balance family time?
Great question. I wake up super early and get stuff done between the hours of 5 and 8 before the family arises. Weekdays or weekends. After the family goes to sleep, I'm usually the last one to sleep. So when I'm with the family, I'm with them. When I'm not, I'm not. I'll just separate it as much as I can. If you ask my wife, there's many areas for improvement. I'm working at it. It's funny. We didn't raise much money at HopStop. I think we raised $1.5 million in total in our 8-year history. We had many opportunities to raise more money. For various reasons, we decided not to. But somebody said to me once, "Oh, so it's a lifestyle startup or a lifestyle business for you?" I'm like, "Freaking crazy! You think this is a lifestyle business? If I wanted a lifestyle business, I'd be working a desk job, doing 9 to 5, weekends off, not doing things at night." Like, you're going to do a startup, it's going to be all encompassing. If you do have to separate your work time from your family time, and you also need to make some time for yourself as well. So that during the spring and summer months, I bike to work, 30 miles, one way, and I wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning to do it, just because not only do I need the exercise, but I need to clear my mind. And I don't do it on time that would have been spent with the family or at work. So it's hard. Yep.
So it sounds like you're primarily a founder, but you took the move to adopt somebody else's baby with HopStop. So how, why the decision, and how was making that decision to become the CEO of someone else founded?
Yeah, so I think there's two types of entrepreneurs out there. There's those entrepreneurs that truly start the company from the initial idea phase onward. And then there's operators of early stage startups that take over for the founder or that work very closely alongside the founder. They're both, equally entrepreneurial in many ways. And many founders have a tough time taking it from beginning to end. Many operators have a tough time coming up with the idea. So I've started 2 companies in my career. I've been an operator and taken over 2. I happen to be 2 for 2 on taking over companies and 0 for 2 technically on starting companies. But you know what? I have an itch to start a company and for it to be successful. I have a professional bucket list. And I want to start a company. I want to be a founder and successfully break through from idea to customer or client validation to having a real business to being successful, whatever that means. So that's what drives me for whatever I do next. I want to do that. But they're both equally entrepreneurial. Like I felt like I was the founder of HopStop, despite not being the founder. And there were 2 keys to that. One was I was given enough equity in the company to make it feel like my own. So I was given a good slug of equity to make it very motivational. And then 2, my board, my investors, and the founder gave me almost complete control and complete autonomy. I had to earn that in various ways, but because they gave it to me, upon earning it, it felt like mine.
Hi, I'd like to ask something about the reputation. You thought it's very easy to ruin somebody's own reputation. So what about such aspects of the personality of an entrepreneur that does not directly relate to entrepreneurial skills? Let's say we almost all heard about Steve Jobs and let's say unusual hygienic way of life at the beginning, like not using bells or like his diet and so on and so on. So these are things that are sort of personal choice, but I can think of many other things like how do I drive, how do I live in my relationships and so on and so on. So would you say you have to be aware a lot to these aspects of your life, not to ruin your professional reputation, or in the entrepreneurial world, that's how I am.
So I guess I'll answer that or address it in 2 ways. One is, I think stereotype of most founders being kind of free spirits and outliers and a bit different. I think that's mostly true. And in some ways you have to be a bit different or think a bit different or go about things differently or look at things differently to come up with ideas that are going to get widely adopted. Where I was going with that quote, though, was somewhere in a different way, which is, I think we all see politicians or businessmen or women, doing things that they shouldn't be doing and getting caught doing it, thinking that they're going to get away with it. you know, I don't care how successful those people are leading up to that, from that point onward, you know, they've lost trust. So that's all I was going. And it's tough for them to be leaders from that point onward, except if you're Bill Clinton. Let me just go on.
Regarding your article, winners never quit, but never win. So, how did you personally deal with that? One of your quote-unquote failures in your earlier company segments. How it's time to move on to the next?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, my first startup as a founder, we raised $3.5 million, hired like 15 to 20 employees, got a nice office space, had a great business plan, a killer advisory board, great management, you know, a ton of window dressing. And the market was going like this. Market crashed. We found ourselves with around $500,000 left in the bank, a bloated management team, no true product to show for it, and a oh shit moment of what do we do now, right? Burn rate of, you know, 125,000, 150,000 a month, you know, which means we had a runway of around 4 months left. We said, okay, maybe we could sell it. Well, we had nothing to sell. There's no product there. We didn't launch anything. No IP. So, you know, and we had the wrong team to pivot. Pivoting back then wasn't even in vogue. Our investors said, after I polled our investors, I said, what should we do? They said, you know what? You know, reinvent the business, go in a different direction. I had a bunch of car rental guys on my management team instead of a bunch of engineers and developers. I didn't even really have the ability to build anything. So I would have had to let all those guys go, find 1 or 2 developers, and do it all quick enough to give myself a long enough runway, plus a terrible market. And the founder and I were at it for like 1.5 years, 2 years, and we were basically burned out, to tell you the truth. So mentally, we weren't there. And once you lose that, once you're not fully into it, you know, and then you have market dynamics working against you, we just knew it was time. So what we did do was we closed the company the right way. We paid off all of our debt, all of our vendors. We gave every employee, I think, a month's severance or something better than 2 weeks. And we returned 10 cents on the dollar to our investors. And those investors remember that. And they've invested in me again, and or will invest in me again. Trust we handled it the right way. We didn't just exit stage left and never be seen. We didn't have the energy to go on. And once you lose that energy, it does.
Without getting too specific, you know, what is next for you? What are some areas that you're excited about, you're interested in, doing next?
So what am I interested in doing next?
Yeah.
I'm interested in again, innovation is a byproduct of necessity. So I'm focused on finding pain points that I've either experienced in the business world, in my operating experience, and hence opportunity, or that I've experienced personally, where there is a true pain point that many people or many companies experience or feel, and that's where I'm going to likely go in that direction. I'm not going to go into specifics, but you know, I'm not 22 years old. I'm not interested in, you know, getting you to the closest bar with the best deal, right? Or, you know, I'm not interested in a lot of these Me Too services. You know, I'm 42 years old. I feel like I've experienced some, I've had some strong operating experience, and I've seen some inefficiencies in various industries and markets, and you know, I make mental and real notes to myself, and I'll circle back.
sounded like you had a great team, you had an excellent business model, and a good plan, and enough to acquire funding and to establish relationships when you said yourself you didn't really have a solid product yet. Can you go into more detail as to how you established those relationships? It sounded like you didn't have much traction and much to go with, yet you were able to gain that trust with these cats.
Yeah, so a couple things. So first off, it was a wildly exuberant time in the tech space. Not too dissimilar from, I think, where things are today. So it's not nearly as difficult to raise money now as it is in a downturn. So there's a lot of money going around. Two, we were wildly enthusiastic and had a ton of energy, which is good. We did our homework and a ton of research. We brought in industry veterans to validate the inefficiencies in the industry we're going after, including the ex-CEO of Hertz and Avis to be our chairman, to invest in the company, the ex-COO of Budget Rent-A-Car to be the CEO of the company, and we persuaded those people to believe in our vision and to convince those investors that there was a true innovation opportunity in this large industry. It was a huge industry, a $25 billion industry. VCs like going after big industries, big white space opportunities. And momentum built. But I think we were more focused on window dressing than we were on meat and potatoes. And I've actually gone full circle since then. I'm like so meat and potatoes now that, I'm almost bored. Like I'm just so focused on substance over hype. I think someone over there is going to ask a question.
Yeah, I was curious about, you're speaking of the failure and how you got rid of that.
I didn't get rid of it. I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, when you take HopStop and you're deciding to make the sale on that, is there an actual process you have to go through to figure out if it's worth it to make the sale, or is it just overwhelming with the amount of money that they're offering you, and he's saying, hey, let's get rid of it?
Neither. So, HopStop was kind of a phenomenon in the sense of built on pure word of mouth, highly utilitarian, so not really sexy, highly robust technology, so tough to replicate, tens of millions of users, very little revenue, in spite of many attempts to get at revenue. So there was value there, but we never really turned it into a real business. Yet we generated enough revenue to only have to raise $1.5 million and to be, in any given month, profitable, cash flow positive, or break even, or more than one of those. And the best form of non-dilutive financing is revenue, or profitable revenue. So, companies are bought, they're not sold. We tried a couple of years ago to initiate a process, an M&A process. And remember what I'm saying. We tried to initiate a process. That doesn't go very well because what that sends is a signal to the market that you have a for sale sign up. And why would you put a for sale sign up if you have a really good business? Right? And we did have a really good business. We just had tough on monetizing it, but we were number 2 in our space. So we had interest from that self-initiated process, but not to make it worth selling the company. That was an inflection point for me and the rest of the team where we're like, you know what? We're going to second guess ourselves here because there really wasn't a lot of interest in the company during that process. But we took 2 weeks off over the holidays, and we took a step back and said, you know what? Are we ready to go at this again? I remember sitting down with the former CEO of OkCupid, who's now the CEO of Match.com, who's a good friend of mine, and he went through a similar inflection point with OkCupid, where they went through a somewhat of a forced, well, I don't want to speak for him. He went through a similar experience. So I said, what advice do you have? And he said, if you're not ready to go at it for another 2 to 3 years, full steam ahead, full throttle, all in, then you should exit stage left. Because it's going to take you another 2 or 3 years. And it did. It took another 2 years. And at that point, I felt like I was burned out. And I was discouraged because we had just gone through a failed process. You know what? We retrenched, we refocused, we increased our focus on what we were good at, got rid of all the things that were tangential to the business. We focused our limited resources on what made us really good and got rid of everything that we weren't best of breed at. From that point forward, our downloads increased, our usage increased, our engagement increased. 2 years later, people started knocking on the door, and hence there was true interest in the company at this point. And there was a real process instead of a forced process, which is a lot better.
In terms of this true interest in Apple, the ultimate acquisition, what were if you could rank the top 3 things that attracted buyers?
I can't comment on that because it's too close to. Yeah, but what we did, what we continue to do, is hard. A massive data point. We had to aggregate and normalize massive amounts of data. We had to interpret that data and make sense of that data and make decisions off that data in real time in a search-driven environment. Mapping and navigation is not easy.
But I mean, is there any way that you made that visible to potential buyers, or did they kind of second guess, oh, it looks like these guys are doing this under the covers thing that we're interested in?
I'll answer that in a somewhat indirect way by saying that I think most acquisitions, most successful acquisitions are logical acquisitions, where you can see what one company has that the other company doesn't have or needs. And that company has either a build versus a buy decision to make. And if you have a build versus a buy decision as an acquirer, then that acquirer, this is for any acquirer out there, has to go through the logical, rational exercise of saying, how long is it going to take me to build it? How much is it going to take me to build it? And what resources do I need to build it? And then based on that versus buying it, come to a decision.
More a comment, I think, compared to 10 years ago, I would say failure is a lot more acceptable today in the market, in general.
You know, I'm not 20, but I'm not 60, but I've been around the block now through 3 ups and downs, 3 recessions / peaks / valleys. You know, I think it's more acceptable to be a failure now than it was, when things were really tough. I'll tell you, when I was unemployed for a year, and I had a Wharton MBA and a Georgetown degree and experience at Big 5 consulting firm and, brand management experience under my belt at a P&G-like company, people don't give a crap about that. They said you're a failed.com entrepreneur. So there wasn't really much embracement around failure back then. There was one answer. That's a good last question. Excuse me. So this is a good story. So the question was, what happened to the engineer in Siberia? So when I took over HopStop there were 10 employees, 1 engineer, and that engineer was sitting in Siberia. I let go 8 of those employees within the first month of taking over the company because they weren't passionate, they didn't have energy, they weren't the right people to take the company to the next level and beyond. That engineer was critical. But I had a tough time winning over that engineer because for the prior 3 years, he and the founder were like this, right? They were symbiotic with one another. And the founder basically said, okay, here is your new boss. And I came in with a mindset of, you know what? Here's the task, tell me when you're gonna get it done by, basically project/micromanaging the guy. And he was like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this, right? He threatened to quit 2 or 3 times. And I was like, man, what happens if this guy quits? I'm screwed, right? I basically had to figure out how to win him back over and create a trusted relationship with him again. But we eventually brought him to New York. Before we brought him to New York, we built a small tech team around him to create some redundancy in case he did leave. He came to New York. He started working with the other engineers. Our velocity and throughput increased dramatically from that point onward. But the funny part of this story is that the founder and the original engineer from Siberia had never met each other until 8 years, 7 years into the company's existence. Truth. Found him on Elance. That engineer is with Apple today and is being treated very well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Does Elance know that story? I feel like they want. They do. That's pretty cool. So one more round of applause for the startups and for Joe tonight. And pull out your phones. We're going to give away this trophy, and we're going to quiz you on some of the things you learned tonight. And the winner is going to win a Vizino's gift certificate, and see if they can disrupt USAR Technologies. Where is that guy? Who's currently in the lead? Yeah, very excited about being in the lead apparently. Ask him about his cool motorcycle helmet. For real. He's got a heads-up display motorcycle. Right? Yeah. So you're going to use your device, go to njtech.co. Feel free to play along, Joe. Whatever. Either way. And in a moment, we'll ask you a series of questions, and hopefully the technology will work this time. I apologize about that. I'll find out about the blue rocket ship for you, Jay. I'm watching. All right, when it gets to 60, maybe. Let's see if they can pump it up. All right, you're going to be asked a series of questions and use your phone to respond. The faster you answer correctly, or answer in general, the more points you get. Here we go. There we go. So what sport does Emily coach at Stevens? Field hockey, fencing, or wrestling? Apparently there's a little bit of a bug in the real-time leaderboard. Technology win tonight. Field hockey was the correct answer there. How many dogs are born in puppy mills in the U.S. each year? 40,000, 400,000, or 4 million? $4 million is the correct answer, which is insane. What is a black box? If you caught that. Flight data recorder, known unknowns, or hidden mechanisms. Or can you define any of those answers? Also, accept that. Not working? For everyone it froze? Yes? let's see if you can vote on this. Tonight's audience choice winner should be, some people it seems to be working for it, some people not working. This would be a good time to answer. Not working. Not working. We have 2 questions left, so try refreshing if it's not working for you.
It's not working on iPhone, but it's working on Android.
Interesting. I knew Apple would be here. So. Are you joining for drinks tonight at Littletown? Yes or no? The last question, which you can just watch. It's really not real. It's not working for you. The New Jersey Tech Meetup is better than the Crimea Tech Meetup, the Late Night with Ginny Fallon Tech Meetup, or the March Madness Meetup. So congratulations to Pet Screener, by the way. You won. Whether come on, let's go off. You get the trophy. And a few of you who it did not work for, if you please see me afterwards, I would really appreciate it. Because we do that for corporations and usually it works. So if you're interested in presenting here as a startup, you can go to njtext.me/apply. Fill out that form, it's a pretty good queue, but get on the list and we'll do our best. I actually manage the list and they'll be in touch. njtech.me/apply. So next month, instead of our normal monthly meetup, we're doing something called a Hatch Match. We've teamed up with a hatchery and we're bringing over somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 50 investors. It's speed dating with investors. You get a series of meetings for between 3 and 5 minutes each and pitch your company. So if you're interested in something like that, it'll actually be in this room with long tables and kind of chaotic, but a great chance for you to get in touch with a lot of investors all in one shot. And if you use the code, I think if you use NJTech, you might even get a discount. This is definitely going to sell out, so check it out, people. The number one thing I get is I need to talk to more investors, so we're making it happen. So check this out if you're interested in that. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. A lot of volunteers make this happen. Thank you, Joe, for spending some time with us in the startups. And now, with that, we are headed to Littletown. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope to see you next month.